Betrayed friendship. Once upon a time, in a small village in the land of Arantis, people lived together peacefully, helping each other and never feeling jealous. In truth, there wasn't much to be jealous of. Their houses were wooden with thatched roofs, which they built together, lending each other a hand. In the fields, they grew wheat, potatoes, and corn, and in the nearby forest, they could pick mushrooms, strawberries, raspberries, and blackberries. Chickens and pigs roamed in the village pens. They gathered fresh water from a river that flowed right next to the village, and it was full of trout. Ben and Lilly, who had been friends for many years, loved to fish for these trout more than anything else. They were actually both at the age when they should start building their own houses and maybe even think about starting families. Lilly cared for Ben very much. After all, they had shared many adventures together, like fishing in the river or exploring the forest. Ben cared for Lilly too, but he was still a little shy and always waiting for the right moment. One day, out of nowhere, a beautiful young woman arrived in the village. Her name was Zara, and she begged everyone to let her stay with them. She'd gotten lost in the forest and had nowhere else to go. So the villagers took her in. She stayed with the village seamstress, helping her spin, sew, and repair linen clothes for everyone. The seamstress was very pleased with Zara, grateful for her help and the company. But Zara wasn't exactly an ordinary girl. She was a witch who cared mainly about herself, her beauty, and her youth. She drew her power from the sadness of others, the sadness she would create herself. So she began asking the seamstress who in the village was the happiest or the richest. But in this village, everyone was equal and content, so Zara had to start looking for a target on her own. So Zara began spending more time among the villagers, helping others, and acting very friendly. But she wasn't being honest at all. She was only trying to find someone she could hurt. Then, one bright morning, she heard Ben and Lilly's joyful laughter as they strolled across the village together, heading straight for the river with their fishing rods and net. Right away, Zara realized these two were different from the others. From that moment on, her mind was set on one thing: finding a way to plant a tiny seed of distrust between them. A small spark that would eventually grow into flames of hatred, which would then give Zara enough power to keep her youthful looks and beauty for years to come. So Zara began talking to Lilly, and a few days later, she had a chat with Ben. Little by little, she started telling each of them small lies about the other. She spread rumors about Lilly and Ben among the other villagers, doing everything carefully and with great cunning. After all, Zara had been doing this for centuries and was very good at it. As time went by, Lilly and Ben started seeing each other less and less. They were both disappointed with each other and began to lose trust and understanding. They stopped going fishing together, stopped laughing together, and started doubting if their friendship had ever been that strong and true. One day, while visiting her grandmother, Lilly began to cry because her grandmother had noticed her sadness and asked why she was so upset. Lilly's grandmother was very old, but also very wise. She had known Ben since he was a little boy, and Lilly often confided in her. So she advised Lilly to visit a special place that only her grandmother knew about, a place she herself had gone to in her younger days. At first, Lilly didn't understand why her grandmother was sending her deep into the forest, a place she had never been to, or how this place could help solve her troubles. But she trusted her grandmother and set out early the next morning. She walked for a long time, crossing nearby mountains along an old, forgotten path that no one had used for many years. Around noon, Lilly finally reached the spot her grandmother had described. She could hardly believe her eyes when, just a bit off the path, hidden behind trees and bushes, she saw a small, natural pond. Lilly took off her shoes and, feeling a little uncertain, stepped slowly into the water. The pond was shallow, and the water wasn't cold at all. She took a deep breath, closed her eyes, thought of Ben, and then slowly opened her eyes, looking down at the surface, just as her grandmother had told her to. Suddenly, the surface of the pond rippled, then calmed, becoming smooth and clear like a mirror. At first, Lilly saw her own reflection. Then her image transformed into Zara, and Lilly watched as Zara walked around, talking to other villagers, to Ben, and even to her. In her mind, Lily heard fragments of Zara's words, and at last she understood. The pond was magical. It showed Lily the truth about Zara and all the harm she had caused. Lily gasped in amazement, then hurried back to the village as quickly as she could. She found Ben and told him everything. At first, Ben didn't believe her and kept shaking his head, confused by Lily's story. He didn't believe in magic or spells, but in the end, he agreed to go with her to the magical pond the very next morning. When they arrived at the pond, Ben was as amazed as Lily had been when she first saw it. The water was restless, almost as if it were inviting him to step in. Lily gave him an encouraging smile, helping him gather his courage. Ben took off his shoes, stepped into the pond, and did just as Lily had told him. The water calmed, and Ben saw everything he needed to see to understand that Zara was behind it all. When he climbed out of the pond, he hugged Lily tightly, and they forgave each other for how they had treated each other. As they walked back to the village, they held hands, laughing and talking, just like old times. People passing by were confused at first, remembering how the two had acted like strangers over the past few days. But after a moment, they just smiled, happy for Ben and Lily because they loved them both. When Zara saw them together, she was furious. She yelled at Ben and Lily, and then at everyone else. She couldn't understand how they had reconciled. And as she raged, drawing all eyes to herself, something strange happened. Zara began to change. She seemed to age right before everyone's eyes, losing her beauty and charm. People around her realized that something was terribly wrong, and they understood that Zara had brought nothing but hatred and anger into their peaceful village. Seeing this, Zara understood she would never regain her power here. So there was no need to force her out. She left the village on her own and never returned. Maybe she's still trying her tricks in other lands with other people, but we'll never know. As for Ben and Lily, their friendship grew even stronger and soon blossomed into love. They knew they could overcome any obstacle in life as long as they had each other.